Hey everyone, welcome back to I Know a Guy. I'm Anthony, and this is the podcast where connections thrive. Each episode, we spotlight inspiring entrepreneurs, professionals, and individuals doing amazing things. Together, we'll grow your circle, spark collaborations, and discover new opportunities. Today, we're meeting Joe Frederick, co-founder of Capital Companion and a seasoned entrepreneur and investor known for transforming undervalued real estate into high-performing assets. With a strong foundation in finance and private equity, Joe brings a strategic approach to capital deployment, risk management, and long-term wealth building. How you doing today, Joe?
I'm doing good, Anthony. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I can't really complain. Busy, we're in spring, so getting out and walking in the morning. So I'm kind of sore, but you know what? Now I get to sit down around all day and talk to people, so can't really complain. But
That's good.
yeah, no, I was reading some stuff about you. Seeing everything that you're doing. You're doing some awesome things, and I'm really excited to introduce you to some folks. But to start off, where are you calling in from? Where are you located?
We're right outside of Philadelphia in the main line area of Pennsylvania.
Okay. Have you been there for a while, or are you newer to the area?
Yeah, born and raised here. I've lived kind of everywhere around this area, so east side of Pennsylvania.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's say you have some friends coming into the town that have never visited before. Where are you going? What are you doing? And what's for dinner?
I was born and raised right around the Conshohocken area. It's really just come up on the map recently. It's a big renovation town. A lot of old folks moving out, selling dilapidated properties, and now it just turned into young families with dogs and kids in the yard. So we would definitely go out to Conshohocken. Preferred for me, I'd bring you to a cigar bar that I go to there almost every Thursday night. And yeah, we'd sip some whiskey, talk about entrepreneurship, real estate, and just kind of I guess more fun things as well. I'm into mixed martial arts too, so I'd probably bring that up as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, what about dinner? Do you have a go-to haunt that you like to take people to, or are you a home cook, or what does that look like?
I do cook a lot at home. I'm a big steak guy, so I do like my red meat. But if I'm going out, it's somewhere I want to bring my wife recently. It's called the Cage. I think it's a few different locations, but it's really beautifully decorated. A lot of green space in there and just bright. So it's in the doom and gloom in the middle of winter. It's a really great space to change up your scenery. So the Cage, and I think there's multiple locations around me.
That sounds good. But you had me a big steak guy, right? So here in
Uh,
Iowa, we're all about it. So no, absolutely awesome. Well, what can you tell us about what you do?
Yeah, so co-founder of Capital Companion. What we do here is real estate investment. So everything between real estate flips for the short-term capital and also real estate holds. So we buy and renovate and refinance apartment buildings. The BRRR strategy. If you're a real estate investor, you've heard about that over the last 10, 20 years. We're kicking off a wholesaling arm of our business as well, where we're starting to wholesale and novate some properties as well. Um, we started out as real estate investors, and now we're kind of finding ourselves as private equity capital deployment for our investor base. So whatever our investor base is into that we can create to provide return on investment, we kind of fit them into a bucket. So that would have to do with the real estate flips for fast return on capital, long-term hold strategies, as I mentioned, with the apartment buildings, wholesaling, which would be pretty quick return as well. That's more of a venture capital, so it's a high risk, high reward. They're also working on a 15-month due diligence period right now to kick off a hedge fund. So that's going to be a longer term play, but I think it'll last for a long time for our company.
Okay, awesome. Well, how'd you get started doing this? Is this something you always wanted to do, or was it a happy accident?
Now, I really like this story. So I would tell it at two different significant times in my life was the realization of real estate and then the action. So I was 16 years old. I had a girlfriend at the time, and we went to her uncle's house down the shore in New Jersey. And gosh, it was such a beautiful home. And I was hanging out with this guy. I was 16 at the time, just hanging out during the day. And I asked him flat out, "What do you do for a living to afford such a beautiful house down the shore? I know that this is your second home." And he said, "Real estate." So right then and there, at 16 years old, I was addicted to money. I knew that that's the realm that I wanted to jump down. That's the life I wanted to live. So I was always interested in it. Now that was the dream. The action I took was I was 22 years old. I haven't done anything in real estate since being 16 years old. I didn't invest or read about it at all. At 22 years old, I was faced with a choice to either move back in with my mother, rent, or try to find a property that I could afford with my finance graduation degree and modest salary at the time. And I made the decision to purchase a duplex. I learned house hacking off the cuff, and this was about 10, 12 years ago now. So I was 22 at the time. I had a family rent above me. And it's funny, the interesting part about this story is me being 22 years old. I didn't know what I was doing, number one, and I didn't think anyone took me seriously, being a recent college grad and especially a family living above me. So I would pretend that I lived there on the first floor in the first unit as the property manager, and that I was answering to a conglomerate company that owned all real estate in the area. So everything I said was God to them and not just a 22-year-old making things up as he goes. And from there, I understood house hacking. I understood real estate investment. I understood, what refinancing and what I could do with the tools that came with that, the money that I got out from the cash out refinance. And, to piggyback on that, I did something interesting as well. And when I was younger, I would call it taking advantage of the man. I would save up money in my W-2 and buy a new house and live in it for a year. So I would have favorable terms from the loan, and then I would just rent it out behind me. And I would move every year to a different area, Conshohocken being one of them, Norristown another one, Bridgeport, etc., everything around this Philadelphia area. And I had favorable loan terms because I was staying there as tenant or owner occupied for the first year, and then you're able to rent it out behind you. So that was how I got started in real estate. Fast forwarding to where we're at now, Capital Companion. We founded this company, my business partner and I, Mark Shinsky, 3 years ago now. And yeah, we do everything that I mentioned earlier, turning into more of private equity investors as well.
Awesome. What is it that you love most about what you're doing now?
Oh, it's the freedom. I have two small children, a beautiful, amazing wife, and a great partner, a perfect partner for me. And I get to spend time with people that I really care about and want to hang out with. My business meetings and the office that we sit in is fun. We have a lot of dedicated hours, but we also agree that we like GoldenEye from N64 back in the day. If you're a millennial, you would know that. So yeah, I just have fun doing what I'm doing. I'm really passionate about all the investments that we have, all the opportunities we have. But I really enjoy the amount of time I get to spend with my kids, and I'm building my own schedule.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And yeah, 100% with Golden. I get that. When you're looking at your average client or the people that you best serve, what are the pain points that somebody might be going through that if they're dealing with X, Y, or Z, you're the person they should be talking to?
Yeah, I think we're pretty agile, right? We look at every deal that comes across, whether it's real estate or private equity or even venture. So I think we have a good grasp on a company of what we're interested in versus what we can take on and what we may not be interested in as well. So I think what makes us different in that aspect is, we'll look at everything, but we'll stay within our guardrails. And if we can't make that deal come together, we'll always make a recommendation or an introduction to someone in our network that knows. So, to answer that question, it is a big thing to be involved with your community around you and understand everyone else's goals at the same time your own.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. When you're looking at that, what does your average power partner look like? Or what are other professionals or folks that you can collaborate well with or find a lot of, benefit in referring back and forth with?
Yeah, being in real estate agents come up as number one, in my opinion. They're always talking to their friends, colleagues, family members who are looking to sell and sometimes don't want to do it on market. So keep real estate agents close if you're in my business. Attorneys are great as well because they're always, an attorney is somebody that you trust with your entire life, essentially, good or bad. And, I found that, our attorney that we use is great, always brings us deals as well that we can look at. And we're always calling him and talking to him about certain things we can or cannot do legally. So I think attorneys and real estate agents are great. Title companies are great as well. That's just for real estate purposes. But really interesting. And people say this all the time on the internet, and I think it's very true. It rings very true. Be in the rooms where you are the dumbest person or you know the least. So if you're trying to grow your community or grow your relationships, get in the right rooms with the big people and where you want to be, and look at them and ask them all the questions. Find a mentor, and I think that it could be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Last thing you want to do is be the authority on everything, and there's no room to grow. So
That's
absolutely
right.
makes sense. What advice would you give to a new or aspiring entrepreneur?
Whether this is received well or not, I think it's take risks. I took risks at 22 years old and built a personal portfolio before starting a real estate business. And in the long term, it helped me, financially afford the entrepreneurial lull of not receiving any capital or money or paycheck from the get go with my refinances or sales of properties that I owned. So I took risks early when I could afford them. Um, and I think if, as long as you do the right due diligence in today's world, which is obviously different than 10 years ago in real estate, particularly, but my biggest advice is take calculated risks right away. Make sure they're the right risks for you and your family and what's growing in your environment around you. But you can't be risk off, because without risk, there's no reward. That's my spiel.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of us will delay. We have an idea, we know it's a risk, we kind of stagnate. We don't do it because I've said this before. It goes to the old adage: when's the best time to plant a tree? 10 years ago. When's the second best time? Today, right? So if you're sitting there waiting with the seed in your hand, and you never plant it. Not like you said, there's no reward. So the bigger risk is not to risk. So absolutely.
Agreed.
So how can investors turn undervalued properties into profitable real estate assets?
I think partnerships, or your community, again, about finding the right general contractors, subcontractors. It is so important to build a team around you that is somewhat vested in the property, right? So if you're walking into something, it's very new to you, and it's a real estate flip, for example. I wouldn't be opposed to offering equity to some of the people that, if a general contractor is spending 80% of their project time at the project working on flipping it for you, you don't just offer them a GC fee, and pay them. You say, hey, I got some equity in here. I want to give it to you because I want you to have some skin in the game. So it is formulating those partnerships, that thinking outside the box. That way, if it goes well, you offer them some equity. You may not have to on the next deal. They just know that you're going to bring great deals to keep their cash flow coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, incentivizing people to work together too is a huge thing as well. Um,
Of course.
how can strategic capital deployment reduce risk and increase ROI?
I think through just purely through due diligence, and I really do think it comes all back to that community thing I'm talking about. So everyone around you serves a purpose to make you happy, sad, excited, feel like you failed because you're comparing yourself to them. But in this particular scenario, and the question you're asking is, it's seriously a due diligence period where you may feel you're doing great due diligence on a project or something that you're new to. You have to reach out to your network to ask these questions that you're not thinking of. We had a project we were working on, for example, and we brought in a guy from mergers and acquisitions in a random private equity company. And he came in and pointed out, I think, three flaws that we had in our pro forma. And if we've never would have seen that, they were good flaws to find. We made a lot more money than we thought. But still, it really taught us lessons as we're looking through these deals to say, okay, you got to approach the people that know what they're doing, and talk to them and ask the right questions. So, in summary, due diligence is a serious, great part, or the most important part of doing any deals, investments, anything like.
Okay. And then going back to when you were 22 all the way to now, what's the one thing that every new investor should know before flipping their first property?
I guess the accurate ARV. It's pretty simple, but what is the after repair value, and is that after repair value going to be sustainable over the time period of you flipping the property? So you buy it in January, the property, it's dilapidated, and you say, okay, it's going to be a $500,000 out sale. I'm going to sell it for 500 grand. Does that make sense 6 months down the road if you have delays? Does it make sense 8 months down the road? So I think you really need to spend, and again, the due diligence period of it is, what is that after repair value going to be? And what could change that after repair value? Advice from me on looking at, dilapidated properties, a couple things that we found that change that ARV in the end is, do you have change orders that increase your renovation budget from the general contractor? Do you have off-street parking? In Mainline and Conshohocken, to be specific, it's hard to find off-street parking for properties that we're flipping. Is the neighbor taking care of their house well? And if you see it deteriorating over the time, knock on their door right away and say, hey, can I fix that backyard for you? Your fence fell or your roof is peeling off. Because people want to buy forever homes. They don't want to live next to a neighbor that's letting their own home be dilapidated. So, you really got to look at those, few things.
Absolutely. Why you? What sets you apart from everybody else out there doing something similar?
We're cool. We're agile. We're not the guys in the suits in the office. Like I said, if you like Goldeneye already, you have to give us a call and have a conversation with us. But we make so much connections based on relationships instead of just business. For example, I have a business card that tells you everything about real estate investment and what we do at Capital Companion on the front. But that's not the important part. You flip that around, and I hope your listeners will steal this from me because I think it's a great idea. I have 5 things on the back of that card is reason that you, Anthony, should call me. It has steak on there, whiskey, cigars. I like to listen to Sinatra and mixed martial arts, right? Like, let's connect on a friendship level. See if we even get along, right? Because if we're not going to get along from a simple conversation, I'm not going to do business with you, and you're not going to want to do business with me. So we're really personable and like to sit down and have coffees. We're not counting the seconds for dollars that we're spending with people. We're looking forward to the future and what we can do together.
Yeah, and that goes back to know, like, trust, right? If they don't know you, how can they like you? How can they trust you? So, yeah, I like that idea, putting it on the card. Here's who I am, right? This is what I like. Do we have
That's
anything
right.
outside of just business we could talk about? Because that's where you're going to have that growth and that connection. So that's amazing. Um, I know we could go down all the rabbit holes. This is a big area, and you're very, very knowledgeable about all of it. But in general, is there anything that I missed or I failed to ask that you wanted to add?
I don't feel that you missed it, but I do have one story that I tell that I think is super important for entrepreneurs, business owners, whatever it may be. I spent, as I alluded to earlier, I was in finance industry on a W-2 for probably 8 years out of college while I was moving houses and investing in real estate on the side before I founded this company. And boy, I pretended to be somebody I was not. I was in a private equity company, financial management company for ultra high net worth individuals and families. And I am not a golfer. I do like to play for the beer and the whiskey drinking aspect of it and the cigar smoking, but I didn't graduate from an Ivy League college. I went to West Virginia, so I didn't fit in at all with these guys and girls that I was around. My point in saying all this is it took me one phone call to have with a random person that I reached out to on LinkedIn that was doing investments for his own company. And I asked him just, I would think, the most pointless questions. I could never recall what they are, but I was still faking who I was. I was never true. And I pretended to ask these questions because I thought that's what he wanted to hear. And what's really interesting about this story is once I opened up the conversation to him, I said, I'd love to hear about, what your feedback is for what I just told you about where I'm headed in my life. He said, Joe, I will never answer a phone call from you again. You are so inauthentic. I don't trust anything that you said. You didn't ask me any questions. I still don't know why I'm on the phone with you. You keep apologizing for me taking time out of my day to talk to you. This is my decision. I said, you know what? You're right. And I went on a tangent of kind of cursing about how scared I was to start a business and, 2 kids that I have and, how do I balance it and asking him the right questions. And after 10 minutes of me explaining really truly who I was, he said, Joe, I'm going to save your phone number in my phone. Please call me anytime you want. I'll answer for you anytime because that's the real you. I just got the authentic you. Hung up the phone with him, went out, talked to my wife, and I said, I just had the best phone call that'll probably be for the rest of my life, the best phone call. And from that point on, this is who I am. No more suits for me, ties. Sure, I like to dress up sometimes, but man, it changed my whole perspective and taught me the sole thing about life is be yourself. Because those rooms that you enter are, you're only going to come out with people that enjoy you for you. They'll find out if you're faking it. A year down the road, 2 months down the road, or 10 years down the road, they'll find out. So just be you.
Yep, that's fantastic advice. If you're pretending to be somebody else, you're never going to be as good at that as they are. So you're just setting yourself up for failure. You're just going to be a watered down version of what you're pretending to be. So that's fantastic advice, and people need to jot that down. But for those that want to, talk business, that want to talk about real estate, Goldeneye, whiskey, all this stuff, how can they find you? Where can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, we have a website, capitalcompanion.com. We're also on Instagram for Capital Companion LLC. Real easy to find. We have our marketing manager, and I run the Instagram, so I'll always answer anyone reaching out. I'm happy to talk to anybody about our experience, deals we could work on together, or just kind of get to know me, and I can get to know anyone that reaches out.
Perfect. If anybody would like to get a hold of Joe, do it. Reach out. You're going to walk away knowing more than you did going in. There's a lot of experience there. You're gonna definitely benefit from having that conversation, whether or not it's about Goldeneye. But other than that, if somebody would like to get a hold of me, you can find me at ikag.me. You can find more episodes, subscribe to our newsletter, and connect with our growing community of awesome people like Joe. If you were somebody would like to be interviewed, you can also apply on the website. But Joe, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your story. There's being authentic. I think we need to hear it frequently from different people differently, right? Because it might not sink in that you said it, but 4 more times, there's probably something to it. So let's all take that to heart. Let's go have an awesome day and grow our circles. All right.